Hello and welcome to the Mets in the UK podcast, your home for Mets content in the UK. You can catch the podcast on Spotify, YouTube, and all good podcast hosts. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, X, and we're now on Blue Sky. We've joined the crowd over on Blue Sky at Mets in the UK using the hashtag MITUK to get involved. Now, tonight is a slightly different episode than usual. We are carrying on our guest series. Earlier this year, we have had on Wayne Randazzo and Jerome, aka JMac Customs. They've also been on the show this year. We're carrying it on this evening with our guest Colin Cosell. Before we introduce Colin, I'm also joined tonight by my usual podcasting partner in crime, Toria. How are you doing, Toria?
I am well, thank you, Tom. How are you?
I am good. Thank you very much. Very much looking forward to this. We've had a couple of weeks off from podcasting duties. Those of you who are regular listeners, shout out to you guys. We are not going to be doing the usual format for the show during this guest series. There are plenty of great Mets content creators out there doing great things with the off-season, rumors and signings and things going on with the Mets. There's nothing major at the moment that we can particularly talk about. It's mostly been depth signings, AAA, relievers, the usual early off-season kind of things. We will go more in depth if something comes up further down the line. So tonight is all the other one. Yeah. So tonight is all about our guest. We are delighted and honoured to have Colin Cosell, Mets PA announcer, amongst many other things, on with us this evening. Colin, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well. I'm honored to be a part of this, and we were just talking before we got into this that I'm a huge fan of the Mets UK fans. So I'm a fan of fans, I guess. So it's kind of feels full circle to me because the Mets in the UK really kind of embraced me when I first started working for the Mets, and just wrapped up my 7th season. So I feel like this is the icing on the cake. So honored to be here.
Yeah, thank you ever so much for joining us. I think that's actually a great place to start really with the first question. So those of our listeners, we've got some regular listeners who are new to baseball. They've picked it up from the London series. They might not be aware of you and the work that you do. They might not have made it out to Citi Field yet. So can you just talk us through a day in the life of what you do with the Mets and how you came about getting that job in the first place?
Yeah. So I'll start with the more exciting thing first, I guess, if there is something exciting about it. And that would be my day-to-day responsibilities. The first thing I do is when I get to the ballpark, I kind of gawk. I like look up at the building every single time, and I'm like, my voice fills that building. Like it never ever gets old. I never take it for granted. It's just one of those things where it's like there are 30 major league ballparks in the world, and my voice fills one of them. So after I'm done gawking and thanking my lucky stars, I go in, and literally the first thing I do after I clock in is go into the booth, and I'll go through my game day scripts. So that will include all the pregame ceremonies. So it could be an amazing Mets award, achievement award. It could be one of the players getting an award, or we're recognizing a local team for their success, or whatever the case may be, as well as honorary first pitches, ceremonial first pitches, the national anthem, of course, and then just any pregame stuff. So I'll read through all those scripts, make sure that it's grammatically okay, that the syntax is all right. If there's any tricky names, that's really paramount to my job, is making sure that I pronounce everyone's names correctly. My voice could crack. I could stumble over copy. While that's not ideal, the real crux of my job is making sure I get people's names right. So I'll go through that, make sure I've got all the pronunciations down, write out my starting lineups, make sure I've got all those pronunciations down. And typically I'll rehearse those and research them ahead of a series, just so I'm familiar with the players and their names. And then after that, just kind of hang out a bit, go try one of the amazing food vendors around Citi Field, go grab dinner, or go to the press cafe, or press cafeteria. It's not really a cafe. It's definitely much more like a cafeteria. And that's where, all of the TV and radio talent are hanging out. So you've got your Gary, Keith, and Ron, and you've got Howie and Keith, and the visiting team announcers, and then a variety of people working in production, what have you, just kind of hanging out and having dinner. Have a bite to eat, and then just kind of shoot the breeze, say hi to some of my colleagues, roam around the control room, say hi to everyone, because I only see them for a handful of days a year. So try to make every minute there count. And then And then, then just head to my booth. I'll have a little bit of dinner. I usually don't start eating until the game gets underway, because I don't want to have, I don't know, a chicken franchise like stuck in my throat while I'm trying to announce Francisco Lindor's name, because that would be fine. So I usually have my dinner put aside, and just kind of go through the scripts one more time, make sure I'm comfortable with everything. And then around 6:45 for a 7:10 p.m. Eastern start. 6:45 is typically when I'll begin my reads, and then it's just go mode for the next 20 straight minutes, with a few respites in between. And then it's we get a little kid on the field to yell play ball, and then I'll say leading off for the visiting team, whoever it is, everybody boo, and then we get the game underway. And then, it's just kind of just hanging out in the booth and watching baseball. A lot of crowd viewing. Sometimes, I mean, I'm a giant child. Toria can attest to this. She's been in the booth with me enough times to know that we goof off a lot. There's a lot of downtime in baseball, but I always am striving for perfection. So it's, finding that balance. But I've been known to maybe make fun of some people's headshots up on City Vision. I mean, it is ultra 4K HD, and some people have some goofy, hairstyles, or, they've a wonky tooth or something. And I'm just going to sit there and we'll have some fun with it. But otherwise, once the game gets going, that's when we just kind of enjoy, the first few innings, when there's not going to really be any substitutions. And then, from the fifth inning on, then you start keeping an eye on pitching changes, defensive changes, and so on. And I have my spotter, Nick, sitting next to me as well. And he's the one who keeps me honest if I've got a read and he sees a pinch hitter coming in, or a pinch runner, or someone's warming in the bullpen. But that is the day to day. So, and again, it doesn't sound that exciting.
It is for us, for us getting to be there and have such a great view and a great involvement. And as you said, you've got to think, you see it from your side, and you say you thank your lucky stars for the fact that you're there and you get to see it and you get to fill that park. For us, we're getting to hear you are the sound of our favorite player coming to the plate, right? That's when we think of our favorite player coming to the plate. It's your voice that we hear announcing that happen, and that is really cool. That's really exciting. And it is great. The vibe in the booth is
it's fun. It's light. We have a good time. Even when I'm in there, if I'm hanging out, I was there for all the playoff games. And so when Marisol was, who's my colleague and a dear friend of mine, she's the other PA announcer. My PA, we call each other our partner. So it's capital PA and then RTNER. It's cute. But she's also my sibling. We have that sister brother relationship, and we take each other down to the most adolescent sense of humor. So we're like kids in there, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, we really enjoy ourselves. We take what we do seriously because we are in the entertainment business. We all work collectively in production to make sure that no matter what is happening on the field, the fans are enjoying themselves, or at least have some sort of immersive experience. And it could be something as simple as the food that we offer, or it could be something as well thought out as what we did this year with the new LED lights, when we would have a pitching replacement for the opposition mid-inning, turning all the lights off, putting on these red ominous lights, playing DJ Razor would start playing this weird kind of slowed down techno beat or something like that. I don't know. It was very ominous. Have everyone turn on their phone flashlights, and it became a thing. But that's what we thrive on. And so for me as a PA announcer, when I say, leading off for your New York Mets, the shortstop, number 12, Francisco Lindor, and I know everyone's going to start chanting MVP, and they're all going to start going nuts, and I feed off of that energy. That is where I am one with the crowd, and that's where the adrenaline starts pumping, and I'm just God, I have the coolest job in the world. But yeah, no, to your point, Toria, it sounds boring when I say it out loud, but as I'm thinking it through and saying it out loud, I'm God, man, those next 80 some odd days can't go fast enough for pitchers.
Bring it on.
Yeah, absolutely. But so how did you go about getting that job in the first place, Colin?
So I have a background in radio and television. I fell in love with talking to microphones at age 5. My grandfather was a sportscaster who was pretty famous over here in the United States. His name was Howard Cosell. You can find him on YouTube. He was synonymous with Muhammad Ali, and he started Monday Night Football and the like. But he's the reason I tried talking to a microphone the first time, fell in love with it, and I was like, this is for me. Now you fast forward 33 years. It's 2018. I had just come off of working for a network for 5 years that went under. And coincidentally, I actually worked there with Steve Gelbs. It was a network over here, a local high school sports network called MSG Varsity. And Gelbs and I actually called a few high school hockey games together. So he and I were familiar, long before he started working at SNY before I joined the Mets. But anyway, the network went under. And I was like, well, I've got 3 Emmy Awards under my belt. I have been an anchor. I've been play-by-play, color commentator, sideline reporter, writer, producer. Like, there's no way no one's going to hire me. Surprise, nobody hired me. So I did the next logical thing, and I went back to the service industry. A buddy of mine owned a bar. I was living in New York City at the time, and a buddy of mine owned a bar that he used to play darts out of. And I know we'll get to darts in a few minutes. And one night he was shorthanded. He was like, "Hey, Colin, have you bartended before?" And I said, "Yeah." He's like, "Can you come bartend in my place tonight? Just fill in, see how it goes." I said, "Sure." Here's the thing: I had never bartended before. I just knew how to make myself a drink. But I was like, it was a local kind of dive. How hard could it be? It ended up going really, really well. And he ended up giving me 2 nights, 2 shifts a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I ended up building a really good crowd there. I started a trivia night. It was great. And then I got poached by this huge sports bar in Manhattan. And while I was working there, I was introduced to 2 of the most important people in my life. At the time, I was just the head bartender, but they hired this server named Julia, who now is my wife of 7 years, the mother of my daughter. We've been together for over actually 10 years and 1 month as of today. And then there was another gentleman who became, or a gentleman, I shouldn't say another gentleman. My wife is definitely a woman. There's a gentleman at the bar who became a regular who had just started working for the Mets. And his name was Joe. And I told him about my background, that I'd worked in radio and TV, and, the service industry was just making ends meet. And I said, jokingly, if anything ever pops up, let me know. So Sunday, April 15th, 2018, the Mets are playing the Brewers. It was about 45 degrees Fahrenheit. So whatever that is for you guys in the UK. We're so backwards here in the US. It was cold. It was misty. It was damp. It was gross. And the day before, it had been 80 some odd degrees. It was beautiful. And I was at a wedding, and it was just a complete juxtaposition. But I digress again. I sent Joe a text, and I was like, "Hey, I'm at the game." He's like, "Come in, get dry, get warm, give you a water bottle. I'd love to show you around the production area, and I want to talk to you about something." So I did. He gave me a tour, and we were standing right outside of what would become the PA booth that I would start working in. And he said, "Look, we're looking for a new PA announcer. It is a blind audition, but if you can get me a demo in the next couple of days, I can put it in the right hands, and then, fingers crossed, hope for the best." And so I did, and I had applied for many, many PA jobs previously, including the Cubs, the Mariners. I was willing to move for it, but here was a team that I actually cared about, and a team that I loved, and in my own city. And I was like, the odds are against me, but what the heck? And then I kept getting emails every couple, it was 2 weeks. And I got an email being like, "You made it to the next round." I'm like, "Oh, I thought you guys forgot about me." And then the next week they're like, "We whittled it down again." And then they're asking for my availability, if I could come to Citi Field and do an actual audition in an empty ballpark. The Mets were on the road. And there were 7 of us. They had whittled it down to 7 people. And all of us were known by a number, not by a name, not by a resume, nothing else, just a number. And I was number 3. Marisol was number 5. I know that. I found that out after the fact. I went in there and I did my read, and I was so confident and comfortable and cool in that situation. I was like, whatever, if I get it, I get it. That's great. Probably not going to, so just give it my all. It was when I left the booth that I started freaking out, because then it was out of my hands. I'm like, this is so close, I can taste it. And funny story, I was managing an Italian restaurant in Queens. I had left the sports bar at that point, and one of our regular customers had passed away. He was 70 years old, had a sudden heart attack. So I left the ballpark, went home, got changed. I had a shift that afternoon, so I was going to change for my managing shift and swing by this guy's funeral. It was an open casket wake sort of situation.
Mm-hmm.
As I was parallel parking to go to this wake, I get the phone call from Joe saying, "Hey, we've whittled it down to 2 people. You're one of the 2 people." And I said, "Okay, great. What's next?" He said, "We've decided to move ahead with 2 people." And I was like, "So I got the job." It's like, "You got the job." And I burst into tears. I was weeping because this was, a dream job, 33 years in the making. Like, and it was, I had no confidence that I was going to get this. So he told me next steps and everything. I was like, all right, let me gather myself. I did not call my family. I didn't call my wife. I was like, let me just go into this wake and keep this information on the back burner. But I came in there having a tear-soaked face and my eyes were bloodshot from crying. So everyone thought I was really shaken up over this guy dying. And what they didn't know that I was dying inside. Like I was over the moon excited. So I went in there and they're like, "Oh, Colin, I'm so sorry. I know you and Joe had a good friendship." I was like, "Yeah, no, it's so sad, whatever." Did my rounds. Then I got in the car, called my wife and family and was just like, "I got the job. Don't say anything to anyone. They're doing a press release. They're doing a whole thing. But I got the job." And then on Saturday, June 2nd, 2018, Mets versus the Cubs. I had my first game. It went extra innings and the Mets lost 6-3.
Wow.
That's it.
That's a great story.
It really is a great story.
It's pretty intense. But I told the owner of the bar or the restaurant that I was working at, I was like, I think I'm going to step away from the service industry and try to build something out of this. She's like, "You damn well better." And so I said, "I will stick around until you find a manager who, I'm not putting in 2 weeks. I'm putting in as long as it takes until you find someone suitable." But yeah, I think I'm done here. And about a month later I was.
Amazing.
Wow.
Feeling.
Yeah.
That's such a great job. It's amazing. And we're very, very fortunate that we have you. And, you mentioned it before, you've always been so great with Mets in the UK and you're so welcoming when we're there. So we're certainly very, very grateful that that it's you in that booth.
Well, thank you. I mean, I love what I do. And I know that there's a relationship between me and the fans, even if it's,
Absolutely.
it's in passing and it's in a flash, throughout the game. But we bounce each other's energy. Like I announce based on the energy in the stadium, and I don't want to just be some guy in a booth with everyone's backs turned towards me. I want to be a fan with everyone else. And I want to make it as accessible a job as possible so that I'm not just a voice yelling at you. I'm someone working with and for you in that game environment. And for you guys to fly all the way across the pond to come and support the team, of course you get top billing. You can automatically come into the booth anytime.
We love that. And we love you. Thank you so much. You talked about, obviously, you love the Mets. And this year particularly has been absolutely crazy. It's been such a wild year. Out of the many, many moments of this year, is there one that is your favorite moment? Maybe, it doesn't have to be, a moment in the booth. It could be anything. And why is that your standout moment?
As a PA announcer, it's funny. My season was kind of it had 3 viral moments that stood out that were just kind of it was such a goofy, fun team, they took their jobs seriously, but they didn't take themselves too seriously. And I think that was thanks to the Francisco Lindor driven team meeting that they had after getting swept by LA. And I was there for that. I was there when Pablo Lopez threw his glove over the netting. And Keith or Gary called it perfectly. He's like, "This is rock bottom." And it was like, yes, this is. But the season opener, our veteran of the game was Seymour Wiener, and I got to announce that name to 45,000 fans, not knowing that SNY was also airing it live. So my phone blew up, and they're like, "How did you keep a straight face announcing that?" And I was like, first of all, grow up. Second of all, totally understand why you're asking me that question. Also, I didn't know you were at the game today. And they're like, "No, I'm watching on TV." And I was like, "Oh, no." I'm like, so there's hundreds of thousands of people that just heard me announce the name Seymour Wiener with gusto. I'm like, Seymour Wiener. Like that's
you're so into it.
And Seymour was amazing about it. Like the dude was like a million years old, fought in World War II. Like he has seen and heard it a million times, and he was such a great sport about it. But that's how I started my season. Then a couple months later, I was looking through my scripts when I got to work, and it said ceremonial first pitch Grimace, and I was like, the purple blob from McDonald's. They're like, yes, and I'm like, why? They're like, it's his 50th birthday, and it's a partnership with McDonald's, and I was like, okay. So I announced Grimace. And then whoever was dressed as Grimace, like their whole like aura was just phenomenal. I told them, I was like, I don't care what it takes. I want Grimace in the booth tonight. Like you got to get him in my booth. And eventually he did come out and hang out with me for, like a couple batters, and it was amazing. But little did we know that was going to catch fire.
Awesome.
The Mets had already kind of really started turning around their season at that point. But if you were to like turn to a moment that was just so ridiculous, it was the Grimace moment. And then in August, when we were kind of like hitting a few bumps in the road, we had the Hawk Tua girl, who I don't know if she went viral over in the UK. But
she did. Yeah,
that's really too bad. But at that point, she was viral sensation Haley Welch, who is using her fame for good. She made a huge donation to the Mets Vets, thing that we do, assigning dogs to veterans. And it was a really good thing that she was doing. But it was also the same summer that she was famous for doing something very different. So, and the worst part was we were up 4-0 against Oakland, and the A's were terrible. And it was actually funny. I'm friends with the A's PA announcer, Amelia Schimmel, and she texted me the next day. It was just like, did you really just announce the Hawk Tua girl before a game? And I was like, against your team. Yep, that's right. But the thing was, we lost that game. And had we not lost that game, I think it could have been swept under the rug. But anyway, the point of this is my season was bookended by Seymour Wiener, Hawk Tua girl, and Grimace. But then we made the playoffs, and the two moments that really stand out to me, one, when we clinched, my day job, I work as a corporate events host. So it could be small corporate dinners all the way up to like large multi-day summits for Fortune 500 companies. I was in Austin hosting a 3-day summit for a company, and their C-suite was having a panel discussion, which I introduced. So you had the CEO, the COO, the CMO, CRO, like all of them lined up. And so everyone, I had to be on my best behavior. Meanwhile, the Mets are playing the Braves for their playoff lives. So I'm watching the game on Box Score, the Gamecast on my phone, and we win the game. And I just wanted to like do cartwheels, backflips, whatever, had to keep myself, together. The day before, when we were playing against the Brewers and won that game 5-1, I had to watch it on my phone because I was meeting up with the people who hired me. So I basically watched all of these games from my phone. So when we're losing 2-0 and Pete Alonso comes up to bat and we've got 2 men on, and I turned to my wife, we were watching the game on TV, and I was like, turn the TV off. She's like, you think it's over? I was just like, I am very superstitious. I'm an ice hockey goalie. Like, this is in my blood. We need to turn it off. I need to watch the game on my phone. And so I was prepping dinner and I'm watching, and Alonso gets up to bat, and I will be brutally honest here. I said, one of two things is going to happen. He's going to ground into a double play, or he's going to hit a home run. And I was like, and honestly, the way this season has gone for him, I kind of feel like it's going to be ground into a double play, and that's going to be the game. So I'm sitting there, and my phone refreshes, and all of a sudden it goes from 2-0 and says 3-2. And I went, oh my God. And my wife goes, did he do it? And she comes running in from the TV room, and I burst into tears. I was like, oh my God, he did it. Pete did it. We were like jumping up and down. Meanwhile, our baby is like asleep upstairs. I'm trying not to be too loud, super emotional. My wife is like, oh my God, you're crying. I'm like, I don't want this to end. Like, this team is so much fun. It's so special. And it's like, you live through the entire season. Like, you can be a fan and go to a couple games and, well, the team's doing terribly. I don't want to go, see them. I have to see them no matter what. So I'm going to ride the highest highs and lowest lows, and I'm going to live through it with the team as a member of the organization. So yeah, of course I was going to be emotional about this. So that moment for me, I was like, we really have something here. And also, by the way, I think we're going to go to the NLCS, like holy cow. So then I'm at the game, the NLDS rather. I'm at the clinching game. Marisol is on the mic, and I go up to the 500 section to visit a friend of mine who is also active in the Mets Twitter community. Excuse me. She goes by What a Mets Steak. It's Christina Montana is her name. She's hilarious. So I go to visit her and a couple friends up in the 500s, and they have the pitching change. We knock the pitcher out, and they do the whole lights thing, and I'd never seen it from up there. So I'm like, this is awesome. Like this is really surreal. So I'm amongst the fans, and I'm just kind of hanging out. And then I hear Marisol announce up to bat, Francisco Lindor, bases are loaded. So Christina's like, we got to take a selfie. I was like, all right, but then we got to watch what happens here. Cause I was like, this is the captain of our team unofficially. And I was like, something's going to happen here. Sure as shoot, take a selfie, and then we kind of make our way, and we look down and then see the ball hit the bat and just go flying. And I went, oh my, I just expletives. And watch the ball soar and go out. And there I am in the thick of like being with the fans, which I never get to experience. And the place just erupting, and we all hug, and I'm yelling, holy expletive. And I was like, I got to go. And I run as fast as I can, go flying down the stairs, go to the production area, and I go in to the PA booth. And of course, we're all superstitious as well. I come in there, I open the door, and I go, holy bleep. And they turn around, they see me, and they go, get out of here. You're not in here. Like, they were just like, you got to go. Like, everyone in unison. It was hilarious. And I was like, came in, and then we all hugged it out. And it was like amazing. But that was just one of those moments where, you watch a man cement his legacy for the Mets. You watch a fan base that's so thirsty for success, experience it with our backs up against the wall in grand fashion, pun intended. And then to be able to go share that moment with my production team, with my PA booth, with Marisol, with Nick, and with Jenna, it was just an unbelievable moment, and one that I get chills thinking about it right now. So I keep giving you really long-winded answers, but I stand by all good.
Honestly,
it's great.
Yeah.
But yeah, so those are all the moments that stand out to me from this season.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thanks. So I suppose off the back of that, are there any funny things that happen in the booth? Any mistakes that you'd like to share with us that have happened?
Yeah. This year was kind of tumultuous for me because I quit my day job in June and took a gamble on myself to be kind of a self-employed corporate events host. Meanwhile, I have, like my daughter started walking in June. The Mets weren't doing so well. Like it was, there was just a bunch of things going on, just at the ballpark, outside the ballpark, personally, familially. And so I try to pride myself on being able to do, to be as perfect as possible. Like I'll tell my wife when I'm on my way home from the ballpark, like I had a perfect game tonight, but I'm always critiquing myself and always wanting to get better. That being said, I had a couple pretty good mix-ups this year. One of them was the Marlins series. It was the day after Grimace, and we were down 1-0 or 2-1. It might have been 1-0. And JD Martinez comes up to bat. Number 28 designated hitter, JD Martinez. Now, my brain, it had been a really, 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 really long day for me, and I was just not in a good headspace, but, trying to do my best. Meanwhile, I had my boss, Brendan McKeon, sitting right behind me. He normally directs in game, but he'll take like the final game of a homestand or of a series off and have someone else do it. And he just came to hang out in the booth for a little bit and just, chill with us. So JD is coming up to bat, and the predecessor to JD Martinez, who wore number 28, was JD Davis. So my brain just immediately decided to announce the designated hitter JD Davis. And as soon as it exited my mouth, I went, "Oh no." And Brendan goes, "Did you just?" And I said, "I did." And then he gets a call from one of the execs down on the field, and he's like, "Did Colin just say?" And I'm like, "My God, these people are listening." And he's like, "Yeah, no, he did. He did. He had a total brain fart. He said JD Davis." And I was just mortified. And I'm like, "Sorry." He's like, "It is what it is. No big deal. There's only like, 25,000 people here tonight. It's not like, it's a huge crowd." And a couple pitches go by, and I was like, "Well, what could save me right now is if JD Martinez hits a walk-off home run so I can announce his name again and get it right." And no sooner did I finish that sentence did the ball go off his bat, dead center, and boom, it was a walk-off home run. I was like, "I'm good. I'm safe. We're fine." And because we announced the home run, as soon as they hit home plate, I'll say, "Mets home run, his 9th of the year, hit by number 28, JD." And I went, "Martinez," like way over the top. And we were good to go. And it was funny. He went on a hot streak thereafter. So then I started trolling my coworkers, including my boss. And I would text him. I'd be like, "Not for nothing, but ever since I called him JD Davis, he has been 9 for 12. Like
That's fair.
Home runs. Yeah. I'm like, so maybe anytime he gets in a cold streak, just call him JD Davis again. But yeah, there was a couple of name mishaps. During starting lineups, I accidentally called Jose Iglesias Julio Iglesias. And I did it, like, I actually wrote it in my starting lineup. So like I Ron Burgundied myself. I Anchorman myself. I literally read it, and I said it with such gusto as well. I finished my lineup, and I put my headset back on, and everyone's still laughing. And I'm like, "What's going on?" And Nick is looking at me, and he's like, "Julio Iglesias?" And I was like, "What the hell are you talking about?" He's like, "You just called Jose Iglesias Julio." And I'm like, "No, I did not." Oh my God. Like, not only that, but I wrote it as such. And then the camera crew, some of the guys on the camera crew were just like, "Yeah, we actually had some cameras on the dugout and a couple of players, including Pete and Jose. And you said Julio Iglesias, and you can see Pete mouth go." And then Jose, who is a Latin pop star, and so is Julio Iglesias, Jose just goes, "Okay." And then you see everyone in the dugout, and they're just laughing. And I was like, "Oh my God, these guys are really laughing or really listening." But yeah, that was mortifying. But yeah, otherwise it is what it is. We kind of sweep it under the rug, and it was kind of, it just kind of lent itself to like the goofiness that was this season. So at the end of the day, no harm, no foul, but next season I will not be getting anyone's names wrong. I can assure you, that stuff took away at me. But yeah, there you go.
Yeah. And I actually, weirdly, that's a really nice segue into the next question, which Toria has for you. Actually.
You mentioned when you were talking about kind of like how your day goes and how you look at the players' names and the pronunciations and stuff. So when the Mets sign a new player, kind of what happens then? Is there a process that you'll go through to make sure that, if you think that name might be difficult to pronounce, is there somebody that you would go to, or would you go and research it yourself? Would you ask the player, or have any new players ever kind of corrected you on the pronunciation or said that there's a preference?
No, luckily I've made sure that I get all of our players down, and I have the luxury, a few times a year I'll announce a game for the Brooklyn Cyclones. And so I get to see the future Mets in action. So I'd announced Francisco Alvarez, Brett Beatty, Vientos, Ronnie Mauricio, like all these guys as they were coming up. And so, I was kind of used to those names. Now, that being said, every spring, like early March or so, Major League Baseball sends to all production teams, all PA announcers, a booklet of every single team and players who have tricky names and the phonetic pronunciation of those names. And that will go through the entire 40-man roster. Now, this is all well and good, but players get called up, they get sent down, players get traded, so when a team is coming into town, I'll go through the prono chart of that team, see if there's any players on their 40-man roster they don't recognize. Luckily, having done this for 7 seasons now, I'm pretty familiar with most names and how certain regions and dialects will pronounce certain things. So when I'm doing corporate events and I've got someone from India, someone from Ukraine, and someone from Argentina, like I always nail their pronunciations on the first go and they're shocked by it. And I'm like,
amazing.
You don't know what I'm up against. But yeah, so we get that prono chart. And then, so I'll make sure I do my research before a team comes into town. If there's a player that I'm a little unsure about, Nick, my spotter, and I will go through Baseball Almanac. They have the phonetic spelling based on what the player has said. We'll look it up on YouTube, find a clip of them, see what the broadcasters have to say. And then the absolute last resort, I'll go to the visiting team's radio booth and I'll just bum rush right in there. And I'll be like, hey guys, how are you pronouncing this guy's name? Because I've heard it 3 different ways, like Sandy Alcantara, like Alcantara, like it's like, what is it? And they're like, oh, it's Alcantara. And it's like, okay, cool. Because the prono chart says otherwise. So I definitely go through a system there to make sure I get it right.
Yeah, perfection.
Well, not always. Just ask JD Davis and Julio Iglesias. God.
That leads nice into. We did some questions on Blue Sky. We put out a tweet earlier saying that you're coming on this evening. Roger replied to us and said, "What has been the hardest name to pronounce?"
Oh, Eugenio Suarez. See, I even stumbled over right there. Eugenio Suarez. I think he's on the Mariners, or he was on the Reds when I first started. And you see the name, and it's spelled Eugenio, or Eugenio, and then Suarez. There's no reason in my mind that it should be Eugenio. Like that's way too many syllables. That none of those letters exist. Like except for like the Jenny. Like what do you do? Like so when your brain just can't wrap around a certain word. Like that was it for me. So I hated him. I hated when the Reds came to town. It was like Suarez in the starting lineup. He did win me over one time though. There was a massive thunderstorm coming in like to Queens, and you could see the the dark clouds building over Citi Field, and it's getting closer and getting closer. And then there was this lightning bolt that was like right over lot A, over left field, like beyond the ballpark, but very visible, very close. And it was a loud crack. And as soon as that crack hit, Suarez was playing third base, and that dude it was like a cartoon character. It was like a cloud of dust, and he was gone. Like he heard that crack, and he didn't care if the game was being called or not. He ran right into the dugout. He was not going to die on that day due lightning strike. And I was like, all right, Suarez, you're okay in my book, because that was comical. But yeah, Eugenio Suarez, just brutal for me. Jazz Chisholm Jr., there's just so many, that's just a minefield. And I won't go into why. You can figure it out. Sean Manaea was just because I was used to, in the Mets universe, Omar Manaea. So I was scared to death that one day I would accidentally call him Omar. And so I was like very cognizant of that every time I announced him when he was a starting pitcher. But of course, did I think twice about JD Davis and JD Martinez? No, Omar Manaea was going to be far worse for some reason. But yeah, Jazz Chisholm Jr. And then Eugenio Suarez, just because it's so tricky.
And the flip side of that, what's your favorite name to announce?
Whoever is doing well. Whoever's on a hot streak. I mean, announcing Francisco Lindor for the second half of the season was a blessing every time. Not only that, but like he had an incredible walk-up song, singing, everyone singing My Girl by the Temptations. And for me to find, for announcers, we call it the mark. That's where you hit your player announcement at a certain point of their walk-up song so that it fits. It kind of like blends in with what they're doing. It becomes kind of a part of the walk-up song. And so, announcing Lindor was just awesome, every time. And for anyone who's curious, if you listen to the beginning of My Girl, you have the bass line. It goes doom, 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 doom. So it does that 4 times. And then a guitar comes in, down, 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 down. I've got sunshine. So I try to find where I could blend in and like hit that mark. And it turned out like the pulsing of the song actually fit perfectly for me to announce Lindor. So as soon as that guitar hit with that down, I would go in with down the shortstop, Francisco Lindor. I've got sunshine. And then, so for me, and people are like, didn't even realize you were doing that. I'm like, nope, this is all for me. But yeah, Lindor is just, heart and soul guy, and was just such a pleasure to announce him. And then having, it's not very often you get to announce a player's name and then have everyone respond with massive cheers and MVP and singing along, and it's, again, that synergy that I thrive on. So for this year, Lindor.
So DJ, who's one of our Mets in the UK crew, he'd like to know, what would your on-field position be? And linked with what you were just talking about, what would your walk-up song be?
That's great. Seeing as how I was an ice hockey goalie, I think, I'd probably bode well as being a catcher. But I love being in like the high pressure situation. So pitcher or catcher, I think would be right up my alley. But then again, I look at the guys in the outfield, and like sometimes I get to like interact and have some fun with the fans, and you have like a bit of downtime, especially if you've got like a ground ball pitcher on the mound. So that'd be kind of fun, just to kind of like hang out and be like, what a beautiful day. But I think just based on my personality and the way I do love that pressure and being in the spotlight, a pitcher or catcher. My walk-up song, this changes a lot. I used to think, being a diehard Beastie Boys fan, Skills to Pay the Bills, which is a deep cut of theirs, that I think would be a lot of fun. Walk by Pantera, just to get into the pitcher's mind. Like I'm either going to hit it or you're going to have to walk me. But then, like songs that would just kind of like entertain the crowd as well. Like something like goofy, like throwing like a Frank Zappa song just to like throw everyone out and be like, the hell does he get? What is he walking up to? Cause you take a look at, Manaya, his walk-up song was just the two of us, Grover Washington and Bill Withers. And it was just like, we have all this buildup and all this suspenseful music and the lights and like the smoke and the fire when they come running out of the dugout, and like all of this stuff is going on. Then all of a sudden it's like, and it's just like easy listening adult contemporary yacht rock. And it's like, but also there's such a baller move. It's like, oh my God, dude, like you have to be really confident in your ability to have that come on. And it's like, but it's also like, is that song dedicated to him and the baseball he's throwing? Is it like just the two of us, like you the batter and me the pitcher? Like it, it just, that was one of those things that stood out to me. But for me personally, I guess Skills to Pay the Bills. I've been watching a lot of Disney films with my daughter, so You're Welcome from Moana would be fun. I don't know. It varies though, but I always do end up going back to Skills to Pay the Bills by Beasties.
Did you ever play baseball as a kid? Or...
No, I did not. I played wiffle ball in the backyard with my siblings, and I was bad. If you ever watch me swing a baseball bat, it's atrocious. I got lessons. I literally got baptism by fire how to swing a legitimate Major League Baseball bat made of wood. At home plate at Citi Field, we had a corporate event going on. They were off at lunch, and I was like, "Do you mind if I take some BP for a little bit? And also, can you teach me how to swing a baseball bat correctly?" And they did. And it was thoroughly embarrassing. It was not good, but I did manage to make contact. One that I'm sure would have been an infield single in a legitimate game. But yeah, outside of that, and I've worked on it since. Like now now I kind of understand the mechanics better. I'm also a golfer. I've swung a hockey stick before, so I get the mechanics and everything in it. But yeah, did not play. And if I did, I'd be terrible.
It's fair enough. I think I would be as well, to be honest, if I gave it a go.
Much better off.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of the booth, you mentioned before you do work for the Cyclones amongst many other sort of gigs that you do. For British Mets fans who maybe have been to Citi Field but haven't made it out to Coney Island, or maybe people that are going to New York for the first time, why should someone go and catch a game and watch the Cyclones? What's so great about baseball there? I
mean, first of all, you're watching future stars. Second of all, it's cheaper. Like not for nothing, but like New York sports are not inexpensive. Number three, it's so unique unto itself. You have a legendary amusement park right next door. And by right next door, I mean like all throughout the game, you hear people screaming on roller coasters. Like you hear their visceral reactions to going in a loop-de-loop at 1,000,000 miles an hour. You hear that in the ballpark. Also, it's right on the beach. So you can make a day of it and the boardwalk there, sit out on the beach, swim in the Atlantic Ocean, go up and down all the vendors and everything, have an authentic Nathan's hot dog, which by the way is there's no better way to have a Nathan's hot dog than at the actual legitimate Nathan's. I can't explain it, but they are just better. And then go and take in a baseball game and see future stars with this just unbelievable view. I mean, home plate is facing the beach. It's facing the Atlantic Ocean. So all of the stands are as well. And it's a little looser. It's more fun. There's, in terms of, just having, I don't know, everything I do with the Mets is a little more strictly scripted, and I get to have some fun with certain things. But with a Cyclones game, like I'll be interacting with the in-game host, like we'll have some banter, which doesn't typically happen at Citi Field. So, it's just kind of looser, and it's so unique and beautiful. Like you're doing yourself a disservice if you come to New York and only take in a Mets game. Like go check out the Cyclones. You're going to watch future Mets. You get to say you saw them when, because for me as an announcer, I got to announce Brett Beatty, Francisco Alvarez, and Mark Vientos, all three of their first, and Luis Angel Acuna Jr.'s, all of their first major league home runs. Wow. And I got to announce them hitting home runs in Coney Island. So for me, it's like a proud papa moment. Yeah. I'm like, this is full circle for me. And as a fan, you get to just kick back, relax, and enjoy baseball. It's on the minor league level, so it's not going to be as sharp as you'd expect at Citi Field, but it's fun. And it's just really cool to see that those future stars in such just a gorgeous setting. You're watching baseball from the beach, basically. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is cool.
Yeah.
It is cool. Now, we touched on it earlier, and we are based in the UK, and one of our games that we love here, and especially for me being where I am in the country, like you are not allowed to be from Stoke-on-Trent and not love darts. You love darts, Colin.
I do.
How, why? Talk to us a little bit about that. I know it's not strictly baseball, but we can't have, it's like how when we go to the US and people are like, why do you like baseball? Like, Colin, why do you like darts? It's amazing.
So I'm the youngest of four. I have an older sister and two older brothers, and they're all, my oldest brother is 10 years older than me. Second oldest brother's 8 years. My sister's 5 years. And then there's a 5-year gap and I came along. Happy accident? Sure. Whatever. But I bring that up because when they went to college, both my brothers went to the same school for a year and a half. And when they did, they went to the local pub and started playing darts, and they learned how to play cricket, and they learned how to play 01, and they really, really enjoyed it. And so when they came back during Christmas break and spring break, they decided to set up a dartboard in our garage at home. And so I started playing. They taught me the rules, and I was just naturally pretty good at it. I kind of figured out the mechanics. And so they would go back to school, and I just kept playing. And then they graduated, and everyone kind of like moved home or moved nearby, whatever. And they learned that there was a dart league in Connecticut, in Fairfield County, Connecticut, the Norwalk British Dart League. And they're like, we're going to start a team. And I was like, cool. And I was in high school at the time. So they're all in their like early to mid 20s, and I'm like 15. And suddenly on Monday nights, I'm at a bar. I'd finish like my homework and then go to the bar and play darts in a league. And I was like beating guys who were like 3 to 4 times my age. Like we're talking like, like late 40s all the way up into their 60s. And they had an unwritten rule too. If you beat the person, the loser would have to buy the winner of that particular match, whatever they were drinking when they came up to the line for that game. And so I'm beating guys, like left and right. And they're like, what are you drinking? And I have like braces and I'm like an awkward teenager. And I was just like, oh, I have a Coke. And so like, they're like, what the hell is this guy doing here? And then they made a rule against me after a couple seasons. And they said you had to be the legal drinking age, 21 here in the States, to play in the league. And I was like, oh, that lit a fire under my belly. So it's like the day I turn 21, I'm coming back and I'm going to tear this league apart. And in the meantime, I'm going to practice and practice and practice. And I did. I joined a friend's team. He was a terrible captain. I kicked him out. I staged a mutiny. And then I put together a team on my own and we just destroyed the league. There was 4 levels. There was C League, B League, B plus, and A being the top. We started in C. And once you win that division, you move up to the next one the next season.
Wow.
So we won C, we won B, we won B plus, and then we won the A League 4 consecutive seasons. So we went on a 7 championship tear. And I was like, this is it. And at that point I was playing in American Darts Association matches as well. So I was ranked in the country. I was in like the top 100. I wasn't going to like go anywhere with it. But I truly fell in love with the game. And then started a friend of mine who was involved in the professional aspect of North American darts, asked me if I would come and start doing commentary and being the announcer and host for some of these big North American events. So, we had former, the first American to win a championship over there, Larry Butler, became very good friends with him. John Part, aka Darth Maple, the first North American to win multiple championships from Canada, has become a dear friend of mine. And I just got heavily involved in it. And I don't do it as much anymore because it really didn't pay particularly well. And it was more a labor of love. And now that, I have a little one running around, like I'm in a money talks kind of situation. So I don't do it as much, but I still follow it. I need to make it to the Alley Pally. I will be there for like the full 2.5 weeks if need be, if I can afford it, in December. And it's just a few weeks away. So always watching those championships, always getting the updates, and seeing what's happening internationally. And while the US is building it as well, because we have the US Darts Masters right here in New York at Madison Square Garden each spring, or early summer. And that's like amazing for me to watch. So I love darts. It was a game that I was good at, and I couldn't play hockey anymore because I was a goalie who had bad knees, and that just doesn't add up. I love darts. It shocks them because the company I was working for is UK based over in Bristol, and we all went out and played darts one night, and I was smoking these guys. And they're like, the hell's up with this yank? And I was just like, sorry guys, I've been playing for a while. Love darts.
That's such a cool story. Love that. Yeah,
it's wild. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So usually at the end of the podcast, we've got regular questions that we ask our guests that come on. So Toria, we've got 3 questions. Toria, if you want to ask away, we'll
quick fire, Colin. Quick fire. Nothing's gonna catch you out though.
Let's go.
Right. First of all, favorite Mets player, past and present.
Oof, favorite Mets player, past and present. I gotta say, my first New York championship that I witnessed as a child was the '86 Mets. And I loved Gary Carter, and loved the stories I heard about him, like what he would say when he'd come up to for a mound visit, and he was that final piece of the puzzle really for that team. And just a class act and like just pure original old school baseball. Present, I mean, that's tough. Cause for me, it's whoever's going to electrify the crowd. So, I mean, it's hard to not absolutely adore Lindor. Pete is a heart and soul Met. It's been amazing to watch Francisco Alvarez kind of grow up. And granted, he had a tough go of it this season, but that kid is so dedicated and he's still a kid. Like he could barely go out and celebrate a win legally and have a beer legally here in the US, like when he was playing with us. So, Diaz, when he comes in, it's always electrifying getting to announce him and hit the mark when we're playing Narco. So it's kind of whoever's got the hot hand at that moment. But watching a generational talent like Lindor and watching him as a leader on and off the field is truly, not every team gets to witness that. So it's he's definitely up there.
That's a great answer. We love Francisco as well.
Yeah. How do you not?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay, next. Favorite Mets moment of all time, whether you were there or it's something you've seen or just historical.
Favorite Mets moment. I mean, when they clinched in '86, obviously that's like ingrained in my head. But can I make my favorite Mets moment the 2024 season, just because like it was such a roller coaster, and to go as far as we did, no one expected us to, and it became kind of a why not us situation. And it just felt like there was just magic happening constantly, and all the come from behind victories. Like no one really addresses that aspect of the team, like their grit, their determination, and never counting them out. And also the aftermath of this season. This offseason, I see and hear such positivity coming from Mets social media that it's like almost kind of confounding. It's like, wait, are you sure? Are you okay? Like, but there's this positive air. Like you're wearing your Mets hoodies and your Mets hats with pride this offseason, and no one is coming up to him and being like, ugh, it's tough to be a Mets fan these days. It's like, Yankees fans coming up to him and be like, you guys had a hell of a run. I'm like, boy, did we actually gave the Dodgers more of a fight than you did. So, but we don't say that. We're not going to say that.
Classy.
Yeah, no, but the 2024 season is just one big moment to me, because it was literally like the absolute highs outside of winning a world championship to the absolute lows, to the Lopez throwing the glove over the side. Like you can't script that. And to be a part of it, even on a microscopic level, is just something that is going to stay with me for the rest of my life.
100% behind that. Yeah, that's a great one. That's, absolutely legit. Okay, last one. You have got Steve Cohen's checkbook, completely blank. You can do what you like with it. Who are we signing and why?
I mean, okay, you can't deny Juan Soto, even though he may, kind of have an air about him, and a bit of an ego about him. The guy makes it to the World Series and he's won one, and that there are players who are legitimate cancers to their team, and they bring the team down. And even though they've got generational talent, what have you, there's something there behind the scenes, beneath the surface, that you just don't see. And it takes everyone down. You take a look at the 2023 Mets, like there's a few players where that was, an underlying thing. There was too much of a clash of egos and mentalities there. So yeah, I mean, do you sign Soto? Yeah. I mean, of course, yeah, throw him whatever money. Like the dude he's a powerhouse. He's an absolute beast. And he's young. And then, sign pitching, get a Chris Sale, get the latest Japanese guy who's on the market. But the thing is, it's tough for me to say that, because when Bryce Harper was a free agent, everyone's like, sign Harper, you got to sign Harper. And how many championships has that brought Philadelphia? We got to sign Verlander, we got to sign Scherzer. Okay, we did. And what did that get us? It's one of those things where Stearns proved his worth as the GM, as the brains of the operation this season, because when he was making off-season signings last year, no one was like, wow, can't believe we got him. When we signed Jose Iglesias, who hadn't played in the bigs in well over a calendar year, a year and a half, and he was just going to be like a stopgap player just to like fill in the blanks because of injury. No one was just like, wow, you see, we just signed Iglesias. No one knew that he was going to bat in the mid 320s consistently throughout the year, have big moments, and also be like the heart and soul of this team, and also give us like our home run theme song. And all, by the way, would be performing a concert that everyone was like going nuts over after we beat the Astros. Yes, beat the Astros at home on a Friday night. Like it just, and then the fireworks after was like, holy cow. Stearns is a genius. He signed people who were trying to reinvent, reinvigorate, kind of rebuild their careers. Your Manayas, your Quintanas, your Baders, your Iglesiases. I mean, like all of these players, and they did. And he saw something in them. Lindor saw something in them. Like when Lindor said, I believe in this team. I think we can really pull something together here when he had the team meeting. I will be honest with you. I was like, this dude's crazy. Like, what are you talking about, dude? So I can sit here and say, sign this guy, sign that guy, sign that guy. And none of it's going to make sense because you can't just have the talent there. You have to have the drive and also the personality. Chemistry, the most important chemistry on the field is going to be like just baseball knowledge, knowing that, pitcher's going to run to cover first base. Tell that to Garrett Cole.
Looking at you, Garrett Cole.
Yeah. Like the chemistry doesn't necessarily have to be there or as strong in baseball, but having a healthy, happy clubhouse can really can go as far as the Mets did to the NLCS, and losing in 6 games against a team that spent $1 billion to win a championship. And to all of the people out there, by the way, who say, well, the Mets have the highest payroll in baseball, 90 million of that was dead money to players who are no longer on the team. Know what you're talking about before you start poo-pooing the Mets and how much we spent this season. We were not in the top 3, so shut up. Sorry, I had to get that off my chest. But yeah, I'm just going to trust in Stearns and let him take the checkbook and do as he must, because in Stearns I trust. I firmly believe that man is going to bring us a championship very soon.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement on that. It's very similar to what we said in the season review in the last episode. That the future is very bright, and I know we're all excited here in the UK to see what that's going to look like. Right, so that brings us to a close of today's podcast. I just want to say another massive thank you to Colin Cosell for joining us and talking all things Mets. If you are listening for the first time, why not give us a like, a subscribe, follow, retweet, comment. All of that good stuff helps us grow the podcast, reach more people here in the UK to bring them Mets content. Over the next few weeks, we have got a few more guests lined up. I'm not going to say any more. You'll have to tune in and find out who we are talking to next. Ooh. However, Colin has set the bar very high with today's episode. So once again, thank you very much, Colin, for joining us. Thank you, Toria, as well, for your contributions in the pod. Always. And we will see you next week for another episode. Let's go, Mets.
Thank you guys so much. Follow Mets in the UK. Do it.